Welcome back, grade 3. I hope that yesterday's work went well because today we're going to do some more work with that and it's going to get a little bit more complicated. But I know you're a very smart group of kids, so I think we will do just great with this. Don't forget to take a few minutes to do your math multiplication drills, especially now that you know why they're so important to help you with division. So let's keep working on those. Today we are going to work on knowing when to multiply or divide. To decide when you're doing a word problem or something, do I want to multiply to find this answer or do I want to divide to find this answer? So let's see how it looks. Just some review. Remember, we have three different things that we're looking for, three different pieces of information. What our item is and how many of them we have, how many groups or sets we have, and how many items we have in each group or each set. So for this picture, for example, we have 3 items in each group. We have 4 groups, and that means our total number of items altogether is 12. So that picture here gives us all the information that we need. But sometimes we don't get all the information we need. So we might have a question that tells us the number of items in each group, and it tells us the number of groups, but we don't know what the total number of items is. So we need to be able to figure that out. Or sometimes we might know the total number of items, and we might know the number of groups, but we don't know how many items are in each group. So we have to figure that out. Or sometimes we might know the number of items in each group. We might know how many items we have all together, but we don't know how many groups there are. So that's what we need to figure out. So those are the 3 different problems that we can have because remember we have 3 different pieces of information. Anytime our question might be missing one of those pieces of information. So we need to figure out how we can solve that problem. Some hints to help you figure it out. Remember that the total number of items will always be the biggest number in your equation. So when we look back up at this again, we have the total number altogether, it's 12. That's our biggest number. Our 2 other numbers, the number of groups is a small number, and the number of items in each group, that's a small number. Our biggest number is the total altogether. That makes sense that our biggest number is the total because that's adding everything all up together. So our total item will always be the biggest number in your equation. That's very important to remember because that means that if we're doing a division question, the total number of the items, the biggest number, will always be at the beginning of the division sentence. 24 divided by 6 equals 4. The biggest number, 24, divided by a smaller number equals another smaller number. So in division, the total number is always the beginning of our division sentence or division equation. That also means that in a multiplication question, the total number of items, the biggest number, will always be the answer to the multiplication sentence. So instead of being what we start with, it's what we end with. 6 times 4 equals 24. 2 smaller numbers times each other equal the biggest number. So if it's division, we start with the biggest number, and if it's multiplication, we end with the biggest number. So let's see. Let's go back to these things that we were talking about and see if we can figure some of them out. So in this one here, we know the number of items in each group. We know the number of groups, but we don't know how many items we have altogether. This is probably the easiest kind of problem to solve. If we don't know our total number, that's often the easiest to solve. But if we don't know our total, remember I said when we don't know the total, we end with the total in multiplication. So that's easy. If there are 4 items in each group and 6 groups, what is the total number of items? So you can see in this question, we know how many items are in each group. We know how many groups are all together, but we don't know how many we have in total. So when you read this kind of question, you know that we want to do multiplication to figure it out. So it would look like this. Here are some examples. If we know the number of items in each group and we know the number of groups, but we don't know the total number of items, we always do multiplication. So let's say we have 4 items in each group times 7 groups altogether. If we know our 4 or 7 times tables, or we skip count, let's skip count by 4s and put your fist up and count up to 7 fingers. We have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. There we go. How about if we have 6 items in each group and 5 groups? We don't know how many altogether, so we multiply to find out. Let's skip count. We can skip count either by our 6s or we can skip count by 5s, because remember yesterday we learned that turning these around is the same answer. 6 times 5 is the same as 5 times 6. Well, I think it's easier to skip count by 5s, so let's skip count by 5s up to 6 fingers. Ready? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So 6 times 5 equals 30. How about if we have 8 items in each group and we have 3 groups? We don't know the total number, but we can figure it out by multiplying these. 8 times 3 equals, well, we can skip count. We can either skip count by 8 3 times, or we can skip count by 3 8 times. I think we know our skip counting by 3s better. So let's skip count by 3s up to 8 fingers. Ready? Get your hands ready. And 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. 8 times 3 equals 24. So that's how we can figure out that missing information. How about if we do know the total number of items and we do know the number of groups, but we don't know how many items are in each group? So a question like, if there are 30 items and 5 groups, how many items are in each group? So we know 30 items altogether, and we know 5 groups, but we don't know how many are in each group. When we have a question like that, where we know the total items, we are going to use division, because we know our biggest number, so we can divide then. So for example, if we have a total number of items, we have 42, and we know we have 6 groups, we need to figure out how many items are in each group. Well, let's divide. 42 items divided by 6 groups equals how much? How can we figure this out? There's 2 different ways we can figure out. And I didn't draw it all out, or I'm just going to talk about it. But we could make our dots or our groups, could make 42 of them and circle them into groups of 6, and then we would get our answer. That's one way to do it, for sure. Another way to do it, remember from yesterday's lesson, that if we have a division question, we read it this way for division, or we could read it backwards for multiplication. So if 42 divided by 6 equals something, then something times 6 equals 42. So shall we try it that way instead of drawing out all our lines and dots? If you prefer to do lines and dots, that's fine, you can do that. We're just going to try it now skip counting. So we'll skip count by 6s until we get up to 42. Get your hand ready and let's count with our fingers skip counting. Ready? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42. How many fingers do you have up? I hope it's 7, because 42 divided by 6 equals 7, because 7 times 6 equals 42. See how it works forwards and backwards? Now, we know we have 40 items altogether, and we know we have 8 groups, but we don't know how many go in each group. So we can do 2 things again. We can draw 40 lines or 40 dots, and we can separate them into groups, into 8 groups. We can do that. Or we can skip count by 8s until we get up to 40. Let's try the skip counting by 8s until we get up to 40. Get your hand ready and do it with me. Ready? 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. How many fingers do you have up? I hope it is 5. Because 40 divided by 8 equals 5. Because 5 times 8 equals 40. And our last one on this page, we know we have 36 altogether. And we know we have 9 groups. We just don't know how many are in each group. So again, we can draw 36 dots or 36 lines and circle into 9 groups and see how many is in each group. Or we can skip count by 9s to see how many fingers it takes to get up to 36. Let's try that. Get your hand ready. We will skip count by 9s up to 36. Ready? 9, 18, 27, 36. How many fingers? I hope it's 4. Because 36 divided by 9 equals 4, because 4 times 9 equals 36. We can go forwards and backwards. All right, then our third problem is if we know the number of items in each group, and we know how many items we have altogether, but we don't know how many groups. For example, if there are 7 items in each group and 35 items altogether, how many groups are there? Well, you see that again, we know our total number of items. When we know our total number of items, we want to do division because we can start with our total number, the biggest number. So let's see. If we have 48 items altogether, and we know that it's divided into 6 groups, how many are going to be in each group? Well, we can do 48 dots or 48 lines, and we can circle them into 6 groups and see how many are in each group. But we can also just do our skip counting. Let's say we're going to skip count by 6s, and we use our fingers for this again. Ready? Get your hand ready. Counting by 6s up to 48. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. How many fingers do you have up? 8. Oh boy, I put all 3 of them at once that time. That was by accident. Well, we have 8 there. We can do the same thing for 27 divided by 3 and 24 divided by 4. That was my mistake. I put all 3 of them on there already, but we have had lots of practice with it, so I think that you're okay with that. 27 divided by 3, if we use our fingers and skip count by 3s, ready? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and you have 9 fingers up, right? And 24 divided by 4, we skip count by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and you have 6 fingers up, right? So when we know the total number of items, we always do division. If we don't know the total number of items, we're going to do multiplication. So we have to decide, are we going to use multiplication or division to solve this? We know we have 24 items. We know we have 4 groups. We don't know how many items we have in each group. Do we use multiplication or division? Well, we know our total number, and we said when we know our total number, we want to use division. So let's divide 24 divided by something equals something. Well, we know we can fill in part of it because we know there's 4 groups. So 24 altogether divided by 4 groups. So we're partway there. Now that here we need to figure out how many items are in each group. Well, we can do 2 things. We can do our skip counting or we can do drawing out. This time I decided to draw them out because we just had lots of practice with skip counting. Here we have 24 stars. 24 stars, we're going to separate them into 4 groups. Now we can do our skip counting. I'll take 4 from here and put them in groups. Then I'll take another 4 and put them in groups. Are we ready? Get your fingers up or your hand up so we're ready with our fingers. And we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. And you should have 6 fingers up. As you can see, we have 6 in each group. 4 groups, 6 in each group. So 24 items divided by 4 groups equals 6 items in each group. How about we have to write a multiplication or division sentence to find the missing information? So we have 3 groups and we have 5 items in each group. How many items do we have then? Well, the one piece of information we always want to know, do we know what our total number of items is? No, we don't. That's what it's asking us. How many items do you have? We don't know. That means if we don't know our total number of items, we always do multiplication. So we start with the information we do know. We know we have 3 groups and we have 5 items in each group. So 3 times 5 will equal how many items we have altogether. Well, let's make 3 groups with 5 in each group. We can skip count them, 5, 10, 15, and that tells us that altogether we have 15 items. So these are the easiest ones to answer when we don't know the total. Our total items, these I find are the easiest to answer because all we do is we take our other 2 pieces of information and multiply them together. That's easiest, but they're not always that easy. So if we have 32 items and 4 groups, how many items are in each group? So again, the first thing we want to know, do we know our total items? Yes, we do. We know we have 32 items altogether. Whenever we know our total items, we always do division. So let's make a division sentence. 32 items altogether divided into 4 groups equals how many items in each group? Well, let's see. Here are my 4 groups. Here are my 32 items. Now we can start separating them into our 4 groups. Get your fingers ready and let's skip count. Are you ready? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32. You should have 8 fingers up because we got 8 into each square, into each group. So 32 divided by 4 equals 8. How about if we have 30 items with 6 items in each group? So how many groups do we have altogether? First thing we always want to look for, do we know how many items we have altogether? Yes, we do. It tells us we have 30 items altogether. Whenever we know our total items altogether, we always do division. So let's find a division sentence. 30 items altogether divided by 6 items in each group equals how many groups? Well, let's see. There's our 30 items. Now remember, we can separate it into groups or we can skip count. Let's separate it into groups while we skip count. Are you ready? Fingers ready? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. How many fingers do you have up? It should be 5 because we have 5 groups of 6. So 30 divided by 6 equals 5. When we're reading a question, we need to know what we have to figure out. So just to help us to see what information we have and what information we need, In these next few questions, for each word problem, underline with red the information that you need to find and circle with green the information you would use to find the missing information. So the information you got, you circle it in green. The information you need, you underline in red. Ignore the extra information if there is any. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. So there are 5 apples in each basket, and there are 4 baskets. How many apples are there altogether? So the information we need to find is how many apples are there altogether? So we need to find out what our total is, right? We need to find out how many altogether. The information that we have is there are 5 apples in each basket, and there are 4 baskets. There's no extra information this time. Sometimes questions will say something like, there are 5 apples in each basket, and there are 4 baskets, and I really like apples. How many apples are there altogether? You don't need to worry about the part that I really like apples. That doesn't have anything to do with our math question. So that's what they mean when they say ignore the extra information. But here we have some good pieces of information. We know there's 5 apples in each basket. We know there's 4 baskets. So how many apples are there altogether? Well, let's answer it for a minute. We don't know our total altogether. And what's the rule when we don't know our total? Do we divide or multiply? Right, we multiply if we don't know our total. So we say we have 5 apples in each basket times 4 baskets equals how many altogether? Let's skip count our 5s 4 times. Let's get your fingers ready. And 5, 10, 15, 20, oops, I went too far almost. Try that again. 5, 10, 15, 20. That's 4 fingers, so 20 apples altogether. Here's another one. There are 24 people on a trip. They used 4 vans. How many people are in each van? There's not really any extra information. It doesn't tell us what color the vans are or anything like that. That sort of information would be extra and not important. But here, this is all good information for us. So first of all, what do we need to figure out? Well, we need to figure out how many people are in each van. What information do we have? We know there's 24 people and they're using 4 vans. So how do we solve this? Do we know our total number altogether? Yes, we do. 24 altogether. And what's the rule? When we know our total, we always divide. So 24 people divided into 4 vans equals how many people in each van? Well, let's skip count our 4s up to 24. Get your fingers ready. Ready? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. How many fingers? 6. 6 people in each van. How about if we have 4 tennis courts being used in a tournament? There are 6 tennis balls on each court. How many tennis balls are used in a tournament? So I guess this is a little bit of extra information we don't need. All that matters is that 4 tennis courts are being used. It doesn't matter if it's a tournament or not, so we can ignore that part. There are 6 tennis balls on each court. How many tennis balls are used in the tournament? So what do we need to find out? We need to find out how many tennis balls are being used. How many altogether? That's our total. What we do know is there's 4 tennis courts and that there's 6 tennis balls on each court. So to solve it, the question is, do we know our total? No, we don't. That's exactly what it's asking us. How many tennis balls altogether? So when we don't know our total, we always use multiplication. So 4 tennis courts times 6 tennis balls on each court equals, let's skip count by 4s 6 times. Ready? Fingers ready? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. So we have 24 tennis balls being used all together. All right, Next, we have some questions from your book. So this is in your actual book. So if you take your book for a minute, you can pause the video to grab it and turn to page 19 in your book. We're going to do some of the questions together because you don't need to do all of them on your own. I just want to make sure you know what you're doing because some of my students have really struggled with this page in the past, but I think you guys can do it together with me. So you can write the answers in, and if I'm going too fast, just pause the movie again for a second so that you can fill in some questions. So let's do some of the ones that aren't circled. So we're going to start with D here. So we have our total number of things, number of sets, and the number in each set. So for D, we have 10 altogether, 2 sets. How many in each set? Now, do we use multiplication or division? Question is, do we know our total number of things? Yes, we do. We have 10. We know our total number of things, and when we know our total, we always use division. So our question is going to be 10 altogether divided by 2 sets equals how many in each set? And you can do the skip counting, and your answer will be 5 in each set. Then we go down to G, 32 altogether in 8 sets. How many in each set? Do we know our total number? Yes, we do. That means we are going to do division. So 32 altogether divided by 8 in each set means how many by 8 sets means how many in each set? If you skip count by 8s, you can pause the video for a second if you want to try it on your own first. We're just trying to move a little more quickly through these so the video is not so terribly long, but you can always pause the video to try the skip counting yourself. If you skip count by 8s, you will get 4. 32 divided by 8 equals 4 in each set. How about 45 altogether? How many sets? We don't know, but we know there's 9 in each set. Now, do we know our total number? Yes, we do. So whenever we know our total number, we always do division. So 45 altogether divided by what? I don't know, but it equals 9. So now we can do our skip counting. Remember, you can skip count by 9s. See how many times you have to skip count to get up to 45. If you pause the video and do it for a second, then you will see that the answer is 5. How about 81 divided by 9? 81 altogether divided by 9 sets equals how many in each set? Do we know our total number? Yes, we do. So that means we're going to do division. 81 altogether divided by 9 sets equals how many in each set? Again, you can pause the video and do your skip counting by 9s to see how many it takes to get up to 81, and you will see that it is 9. 9 in each set times 9 sets equals 81. And one last one together. If we have 72 all together, we don't know how many sets are being divided into, but we know we have 8 in each set. Again, do we know our total number? Yes, we do. It's 72. So when we know our total, we always start with division. You'll see that most of these are going to be division, but there's a few in there that are multiplication, so do be careful. So 72 altogether divided by, we don't know how many sets, equals 8 in each set. Again, if you do your skip counting by 8s, skip count by 8s to get up to 72, see how many skips or how many fingers you have up, and it will be 9. 8 times 9 equals 72. So that means 72 divided by 9 equals 8. All right, then you can pause the video here for a minute so you can circle these. These are the questions I would like you to do today. You do not have to do all of them because there's a lot on these 2 pages again. But I would like you to do all of these ones, and I would really love if you can let me know when you send your response, let me know how it went, because I know that today and yesterday were more challenging lessons. And like I said, I know my students have really struggled with them in the past, so I would really love to hear from you to know how well this went for you. All right, enjoy.